so that they could do the same thing. All of us would love to have our children grow up to have the moral fortitude of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, wouldn't we? Yes. The question is, how do we do it? Well, the Bible gives us an answer. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were taught in a certain way. And if we look in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verses 5 through 9, it says this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. These commandments that I give to you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. What is this verse saying? It's saying that during this impressionable time, we have the responsibility to impress on children God's commands. And what happens when we do that? It says that it will become upon their hearts. That's what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had. 3 young men who were torn from their families and taken to a foreign land, who had the fortitude to stand. Why? Because somewhere in their past, their family, their extended family, impressed into their hearts that there was only one God and that only one God should be served. But I don't believe it was just what was told them, but also when it was told them. Proverbs 22:6 says this: train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I laugh at the simplicity of this verse. It's not rocket science, is it? When I was in college, I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. Then I got my master's degree in biblical studies. And as I look back on my college career and I think about all of the great developmental and moral psychologists that I studied, the 2 greatest being Jean Piaget and Lawrence Kohlberg, the giants in moral and cognitive development studies. All of the time, all of the effort, their whole life that they devoted to this could have all been saved if they just would have read this one verse. That what we put into our kids when they are young is what they will become when they're older. Since we're on that subject, let's go ahead and take a look at what developmental psychologists say about this important time in our life called childhood. I want to show you a graph up here. As you look at this, there are 2 different lines. The first one I want to look at is the cognitive development. Cognitive development is our ability to deduce, to reason, to problem solve, to think, basically. It says that our cognitive development peaks out somewhere around the age of 35. Now, it doesn't mean that your cognitive development completely stops at 35. It just means that it's starting to go down. However, look at that green line, the moral development that begins at about the age 2 and peaks at age 10, and then continues to drop till about age 18, where the majority of our values and morals are set. What does that graph tell you? I know what it tells me. We don't have a lot of time to build into our children. And this is so important. I want to do something for you. I want to bring up a good friend of mine and his daughter, as well as a prop that I think will help further explain this whole graph thing. I want to introduce to you Mr. Jeff Grubb and his beautiful daughter, Tatum. Jeff Grubb and his wife, Lori, have been serving with my wife, Carrie, and I before Tatum was even born. They've been here for 15 years. And if there is a family, like many of you, who epitomize what it means to orbit your life around the church and make sure that you are here, it's this family. Jeff serves up in 4th and 5th grade each and every weekend. His wife serves on the stage in K1 each and every weekend, and their daughters are benefiting from it. And you know what the really cool thing is? Their daughters are growing up. We're born here and are growing up in this church. And they're giving them a gift that is invaluable, because when they reach 18, 19 years old, they are going to be able to look back upon their whole life and they're going to be able to go, Fellowship Church was my church. Not Fellowship Church and this church and this church and this church and this church. What a great gift we can give to our kids by staying planted. Whatever the problems, whatever the disagreements you might have, stay planted. If nothing else, for your kids. All right, let's go back up here because I want to walk up here and look at this prop I have. These two cylinders are going to represent Tatum, okay? Now, as you notice from that graph that I had up there on the screen, there is a window that opens up about age 2, is fully open at age 10, and begins to close until about age 16. This window is going to be represented by this slider that I'm going to open up. Age 10, it's going to start closing, all right? Now, for a lot of us, we don't really give a whole lot of thought to moral training in our kids, do we? Oftentimes, it's just kind of haphazard. And if we do any form of moral training, most of the time, it's done in discipline. And so, as I do this, I want this to represent a typical parent who kind of hopes and assumes that somewhere along in life, during this important time, the child will get the right morals. So, as this window is opening up, every now and then, we get some good morals and values. Here we are at age 10, and the window is now beginning to close. Still going, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and it's mostly closed. Well, we got some good morals and values down there, don't we? Now, I want you to put some more into this, Jeff, because this is really important. This down here represents Tatum's heart. This represents Tatum's head, her cognitive development. Moral development, cognitive development. Everybody got that? All right. As you look at this, as you get older and your cognitive development continues to happen, you will learn new morals and you will learn new values, but the ability to get them into here is greatly diminished. Now they're predominantly up here, just like they are up here. And the problem with that is yes, it's good that they're up there, but all of us know that when our morals and values are strictly up here, they're a lot easier to rationalize away. But Tatum, if you'll come stand over here, and I want you to model what I know your parents do for you on a regular basis. This is a family that has a strategic plan on pouring morals and values into their kids during this critical time. And I'm going to give you how to do that in a very easy step at the end of this message. So, Jeff, here I go. I am now opening up the window. Ages 1, 2, 4, 6, 10, now it's beginning to close, 14, still going in, 16, and there we go. Now, obviously, none of us are perfect, so we're not going to get every moral and value in the universe into our kids during this time. But hopefully you can see the big difference between here and there, and here and there. And here's the big thing right here. When Tatum is one day faced with the decision about whether or not to do right or wrong, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were, if that moral value is down here, she will not, in her conscience, be able to give into the desire to do the wrong thing, because the pain and the guilt will be too great, because it's not up here, it's down here. It's part of her emotional DNA. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you. One and awesome. Thank you. You know what's so frustrating for me is we have as a society many different ways to cognitively teach our children through school, through university, through programs. But yet we have so very, very, very few entities that can teach moral values during this critical time. And I think that's the problem